there's a secret thing with that book that I added into it that people would be able to figure out. And if they email me about it, I will give them like a year's subscription to Open Letter, the first person who does it.
All right. The gauntlet has been laid down.
Welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is Chad Post from Open Letter Books. I'm here with Tom Roberts from Albertine Books and from New Directions. And today we're going to talk about 5 recent books that came out that we've either read and been excited about or really want to read. So I'm going to let you start off, Tom, and pick a book that you wanted to talk about.
Let's see. I'm going to start with... We had a long exchange about this because we have different opinions on this. Let's start with the Open Letter book by Antoine Valadine, Post-Exoticism in 10 Lessons, Lesson 11. Now, I started texting you when I was reading this saying, I really understand that it's brilliant, but I really did not enjoy reading it.
Which I figured would happen.
Yeah, can you go ahead and try to explain it? The layout, and even that's something that I found annoying, is there is a narrative, and then the 11 lessons are woven into the narrative.
10 lessons are woven into the narrative.
Okay. And they're put in there, but they don't, you'll be reading a page, and then, mid-sentence, the next page will just be this thing, and it's laid out really well, I gotta say. I appreciate the way you guys did that.
The boxes?
The boxes. And so it's very obvious that you're reading one of these lessons. And at first I tried to read them and sort of remember where I had left off. And then I decided to just read the main body and then go back and read them. And that seemed to be fine. Is there an ideal way to do it?
I was going to say almost, I wonder if the opposite way wouldn't be better, of reading the 10 lessons and then reading the narrative. The setup is that Antoine Valadine has a few different pseudonyms. I think we've talked about him on here before. He has a few different pseudonyms, and for the past 15 years or so, he's been writing this sort of grand, ambitious project in which a lot of these authors and pseudonyms that he uses and authors that are referenced within his books each have their own sort of life and are connected in vague ways. It's like a post-apocalyptic Faulknerian way where different characters will appear in different books and certain events will sort of be recounted, but not really in any way that's like linear or makes complete, realistic, concrete sense. Like you can't lock these books together and define a world. There's more amorphous than that, in part because his sort of grand, ambitious project is that the world has fallen apart in some very drastic way. At some point in time, there was a group of writers who used something called post-exoticism. That was their writing movement to help try and change the world and help try and convey messages that were beneath the capitalist overlords or get past the capitalist overlords and through their writing. So some of the books that he's written, like We Monks and Soldiers by Lutz Bassman, is 7 stories, I believe. It might be 9 stories. It's an odd number of stories, 2 of which repeat. But with some very distinct differences. But it reads like a short story collection that has some thematic links behind it. That book might show up then in this book, Post-Exoticism in 10 Lessons, where it's sort of the meta-reflection of an author, Lutz Bassman, in prison for having been part of this post-exoticist writing movement. And he's being questioned and trying to explain what this movement was, how it functioned, why it was so dangerous, what they were trying to do, so on and so forth. So all the different books within this sort of ambitious project can be both either the book themselves, the material themselves, or reflection on the material, or both, and they sort of weave together in that way. So with this book, he's being questioned the whole time, like you say, is the main narrative is his response to this sort of interview being questioned. He's going to die. He's the last post-exoticist living. They're trying to find out his secrets. And then embedded within that are 10 lessons, some of which, if you've read his other books, are clear jokes. Like there's a review of Minor Angels in there that has absolutely nothing to do with Minor Angels. That book is completely different than what's described inside of Post-Exoticism and 10 Lessons, with the 11 lesson being the overarching narrative. So in a way, I wonder if it wouldn't make more sense to read the 10 lessons first, especially if you're not already familiar with him and like that game. But they're I don't know.
I will say, they play off of each other.
They do.
When I was reading them sort of concurrently for the first, third or something, it was obviously that they played off of each other, and not in like a very direct way, but when I forget which person was being interviewed, or they were talking about a certain person being interviewed or questioned or whatever, they would then reference that sort of thing in one of the lessons, or there would be a list. Some of the lessons are lists of titles and things like that.
Which are completely made up, too.
Right. And, well, we'll get to this in a second. But you could see how they were fitting together. That there was, it was almost as if the lessons were sort of footnotes to this person's career, or what I'm trying to think of a term, but, like a counter narrative to what they did. And
right.
It sort of rounds it out and also gives their stance while being questioned, sort of validity, and all of these sorts of things that are tying together. I will say, you said that it's a post-apocalyptic world, and all these people are in prison and being punished for what their involvement in post-exoticism. Is that ever laid out, or is it always just sort of referenced obliquely the way it is here?
It's referenced obliquely in all the books of his that I've read that have been translated. The one that we're doing that Jeffrey Zuckerman's translating, I think, makes it all a lot more explicit. But the ones that I've read, it's always been a thing that has happened or that has existed, and you get certain bits of the information, but not fully. There's always, in this post-apocalyptic world, too, there's lots of spiders, and there's lots of, moisture. Things are always damp. And he's got a certain tone to it. Like at the first scene in that, the description of his cell is like a perfect Volodine sort of post-apocalyptic thing where walls seep. Things are kind of run down in that way. Did you see the interview with him in The New Inquiry, or it's an essay by him?
No.
It's a bigger, much longer, fuller explanation of everything.
Okay.
And it has a summary of these lessons and what they're trying to do, and it's all done as bullet points that are some of them are super irreverent and funny, and other ones are a lot more about the power of art. And that's part of it, is he believes somehow in this power of art and writing to do things.
Now, here's my question and my main complaint with this sort of writing. Do you feel like he is trying to demonstrate the power of art, or do you feel like he is simply saying that art can be powerful and showing it through these?
I think there's a mixture. I think that on one hand, with some of the books that are part of his overall program, I don't think taking one book of his by itself is a bit tricky, because they are all interwoven and self-referential in that way. So taking the book and saying, is this a representative of the power of art, I think is slightly different than saying, is his whole overall ambitious project a representation of the power of art, and that I think it is. And I think that this book is more of the playing with the idea of the single narrator, or the single the kind of condensed singularity of that narrative versus these other ones that are the shagas, or the things that are more short story or novelistic. This one's less novelistic in a way and more of laying out certain ideas. And I think that that's a little bit less artistic in the sense that some of these stories are, or the way that they're constructed. But all of the books have a really important emphasis on the overall structure of them. So the 10 lessons being embedded in this case is maybe not the most revolutionary thing, but is one of the concerns with it. And the other one, We Monks and Soldiers, has this kind of reversal thing that goes on, and certain stories get repeated, but from other angles. He's playing a lot with that kind of. And Minor Angels has 49 chapters, I believe, because it's perfectly rounded. I forget how, but certain chapters match up with each other and complement each other. But there's a lot of games with that go on, and I think that there is something to that. But I think part of it is too, once you're inducted into it is maybe the wrong word, but once you're brought into his world, all the connections start to become more and more meaningful, and the more of it that you read, the more that you understand how things work. and how the world works, but no single one is like there's like holding your hand into step one of his project. You just sort of enter in at any point, any focal point that you want, and then there's all these things that kind of radiate out from that.
I'm going to ask the obnoxious question. The power of art to do what exactly?
To at least make you question what reality is.
All right, fair enough. My problem with it was too many layers of writing about writing about writing, and I don't know. I'm always drawn more towards show don't tell, and I feel like I was getting a lot of telling here. And maybe, like you said, there are other books that would demonstrate more than talk about what he's talking about. In which case, yeah, I probably need to give it another shot. This totally random made the way you just described it kind of sounds like Deep Archer from the last Pynchon book.
Oh yeah. That's pretty funny. I'm trying to find a good quote from one of his bits here of his things that sort of rely or that would answer some of your questions, but I'm not sure that there's one that would work to answer. But I'll link to this we've written about it before, but I'll link to it for this post for this podcast in case anyone's interested in reading his long essay, which is pretty fun. And all of it's a game. I mean, it's all just a game, too. So the writing about writing is sort of sly in various points and times, too. And that's why I didn't think you would like it in particular, because it's not the sort of book that you would usually talk or rave about, that I've heard you rave about anyways. But it's the sort of book that there are a lot of people, myself included, that get their kicks off on this sort of thing. And I think that it's very rewarding for people who are into that kind of literature.
Yeah, and like I think I've made clear is I recognize its brilliance. It's not my taste.
Mm-hmm. That's what I figured.
If anyone, we've probably piqued more than a few people's interest. So
it's a strange and wonderful. There's also a secret hidden into that book that I added into that book that if anyone figures out, I will give you a secret reward.
That is the vaguest thing ever.
Yep.
Secret in the book.
There's a secret thing with that book that I added into it that people would be able to figure out. And if they email me about it, I will give them like a year's subscription to Open Letter, the first person who does it.
All right. Challenge. The gauntlet has been laid down, let us say.
Why don't we do Argonauts next?
Sure. I was going to save this one since it's not a translation and whatever, but...
It's one that you were excited about.
Well, everyone is excited about this book, and justifiably so, because it's fucking brilliant. So, to give a rough sketch of this book, which is not a novel, I should point out, it is more like, let's call it a really, really smart memoir that mixes in a lot of theory analysis and...
I was going to say lyric essay.
It has moments of lyricism, yes, but it's also, I mean, it's really, every third or fourth page, there's definitely, reference of, analysis of, and quotes from various philosophers. So,
right. No, that can be all part of a lyric essay, too.
True, fair enough. But basically is an exploration of Maggie Nelson's relationship with her partner, who is now Harry Dodge, an artist who's, her sexual identity is rather fluid. And anyway, they have a relationship, and, it's obviously a less normal, less common sort of relationship, according to, current social mores and that sort of thing. It's obviously becoming something far more common and accepted and less shocking for a good part of the world. But, it's still something that is being unpacked by even the people in these relationships. And that's kind of what she's doing here, is trying to unpack what it is that her relationship is and how it fits in, how they fit into society and what they're trying to do. And obviously the answer is they're just trying to be happy. They're just trying to raise a family. But it's just unbelievably smart. And she's got this wonderful ability to she writes in like page-long paragraphs or, three-quarter long, page-long paragraphs that sort of, I don't want to say jump all over the place. They certainly tie together, but every once in a while, there'll be she'll start a story or analysis out of the blue, and then, 4 or 5 pages later, there's this payoff that you didn't see coming, and it's just like a masterpiece, a tiny little masterpiece in there. And it's just so smart, the way she talks about relationships and just love and all of these things in this, fucked up, crazy world that we now live in. And especially, she's trying to be a very, she wants to be a good feminist, and she has her beliefs, and at the same time, she wants to live her quiet life and not be a lightning rod for everything and not be at the forefront of these causes and everything, because it is, it's their right to just have a normal household and to do all of these things. And, but she walks through what it's like to be in this relationship, and it's just really beautiful. Everyone should read this book. I don't care who you are. Just read this book.
I got a copy at the Winter Institute, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. But it has like quite a rundown of people who have blurbed this: Ula Biss, Ben Lerner, Wayne Kostenbaum, Annie Sprinkle, Michelle T, and then my favorite is Kim Gordon, who refers it as a romantic, intellectual wet dream.
It's about right.
It's pretty awesome. So both of the first 2 books are sort of about breaking outside of conventional acts, narratives about love and sexuality, or about narrative itself.
Right. Yeah, that's what they're trying. This is what she's doing. She's talking about the narrative of relationships and how it's just been completely blown up in modern society. And then that's a good thing, because it didn't have to be the way that it was. But it's not easy, like, yeah, gay people can get married. They more and more can get rights, that, healthcare and all these sorts of things that, have been hurdles for the past, 40, 50 years that it really has been building towards this. But it doesn't mean that, like, day to day, going to the DMV and trying to get a driver's license are any easier, for somebody born a woman who identifies as a man. I think there's a story in there about them buying a Christmas tree with a credit card, and Harry getting, just like a very awkward response from the 16-year-old kid who was selling them a Christmas tree and that sort of thing. And it's unfortunate that these sort of things still happen, but they're going to keep happening. And it's how do you react to it? How do you incorporate that into your life and try to make sense of it and try to spin it a good way and try to make the world better because of it and in spite of it? And that's what she's doing. And she's done her homework. She definitely knows what she's talking about in philosophical terms, and she quotes everybody just the right way. She never leans on any one philosopher too much, and she's all over the place. And she tears them down. She goes back to her former self and is very honest with the way she used to think, and criticizes herself. And it's just really good. I could go on, but let me just say, everyone should read this book.
And it's short, so you can read it. Both of these books are very short.
Short but dense,
Yeah.
But yeah, I read it in like 2.5 days or something.
So this is a digression, but an entertaining one. Is I was looking at the listing for that on Amazon, and beneath it, there is a book. It says, like, people who have bought this item have also bought, and it was a book called Gone Girl, but not the Gone Girl that you know of, a book by Adrian. It's the name of the author. Adrian? Just Adrian. Called Gone Girl, and it's a Kindle book only, of course, and it's $3, and it's 63,000 in the sales rank, which isn't absolutely terrible, right? It's got 15 one-star reviews because
everyone thinks it's Gone Girl.
Yes. The first one is, I purchased this book thinking it was the book the movie was based on. It is not. Has the author used the title to lure unsuspecting readers into purchasing it? Probably. After 10 minutes of reading, I fast-forwarded to the end and realized I'd been duped by the title. I just love, like, what the fuck? Like, you couldn't figure that out ahead of time? Like, really? And then the other titles of this are, needless to say, she did not like the book. My wife threw the book against the wall when she finished it. She was pissed. Worst book I've ever read in my life. So, yeah, that just randomly underneath her book for some reason. So
that is weird.
Very weird. You never know how these algorithms not so useful here.
Worst book I ever read in my life. I read a book a day, and I can't believe I wasted a day of my life, Jesus, for the ending of this crazy story.
Anyways, read Maggie Nelson's book. Do not read Gone Girl by Adrian. I assume.
The cover is even like deceptively similar.
Yeah, it really is. They really did just like, why not?
Yeah.
I kind of want to do that with all of our books now. Just retitle them Gone Girl. What the hell? Just sell it on
Gone Girl, Moby Dick.
Whatever. Like, no one will notice. It'll be too late to turn it in. Okay, so I'll go with the next one because the last two we tie into other things, which would be Bae Swa's Nowhere to Be Found, which is she's a Korean author that I met when I was in Korea in December, whose book, The Essayist Desk, we're planning on publishing in a year and a half or so. And this is her second book to come out in English, but the first, like, novella, I guess. It's like 90 pages, if that. I think it's actually closer to like, it says 108, but I feel like that's a lie. It's not very long at all. It's a very tight, short book, and a lot of Korean writers do this where they write like short novellas rather than like 300-page novels. And this focuses around a young woman who is just working a normal job, then is involved with this guy who is part of the military. She goes to visit him. Some weird things happen in which she can't find him, and then it's interspersed with this are these like dark sort of sadomasochistic sex scenes. There's a couple of them, and that recur and sort of give a different perspective on what the timeline is for this book. But it's incredibly well written. It her writing reminds a lot of people who have read bits of it above Sebald, and she has this sort of way of doing that with like this memory and this like looping sentences. And she's very dedicated, like big Sebald reader, and she's a translator as well. I think she translated Sebald into Korean, which is part of where this connection comes from. But the book is beautiful, and it may be, and this is where I wanted to take this in a different direction. So should read it. It's interesting. It's really cool, and they could talk more about that. But I think it might be the first Amazon Crossing book that the people of our sort of set of readers and listeners, the Scott Esposito and Will Evans and people like that listen to our books will actually read. Because most Amazon Crossing stuff is based on doing popular like thriller, romance, bestseller books that aren't necessarily the audience of people who listen to this podcast or that are part of the people who we deal with on a normal basis. Whereas this is a very truly literary book by an author I think will be a big deal to all of those readers over the next couple of years.
Yeah, this is weird. I wonder how did it escape every other publisher's notice?
We got the Essayist Desk from from Deborah Smith, who translates from Korean and has been on. I don't think she's ever been on the podcast, but she's a listener, so she's probably listening now. Hey, Deborah, you're awesome. Your books are great. She sent us that, and I don't think that she sent this to Amazon, but because Sora Kim Russell is the translator, but I think Amazon found out about it through the Korean Literary Institute. But because most people just haven't been paying attention to Korean literature, I think it was just available. And I'm not entirely sure. I think Amazon might be doing other of her books. She has a lot. Or a number, because she's been writing for a number of years. But she's an amazing woman, and like her writing is sharp and like gorgeous, and people are going to really respond well to this. If it were out from any other publisher, I think it would be like, if it were a coffeehouse book, for instance, I think it would be one of the biggest books of this year. The fact that it's Amazon is like very interesting to me. I think that people should just buy this. It's like a $5 ebook, or I don't even know how much the
paperback is for. I mean, I'm on Barnes & Noble, and it's $11. So
okay, how about you?
Like $6 too.
Yeah, it's $11 for the paperback and then the ebook version is like $5.
Yeah.
So it's not that expensive. It's very tight, and I think it's going to blow you away. And I think that it's like the sort of book that people will really love. And I know people have issues because it's from Amazon. I think in this instance, like, just read this book. This book is more important than any of the other things that go on, and I don't think that buying this book is going to like somehow make Amazon that much more strong to take over take over another independent bookstore.
Right.
I think this is a pretty specific thing. And it is like I know the editor at Amazon Crossings, Gabby Page Fort, who you probably know as well. And I think it's pretty exciting for her to work on a book that's really interesting like this. That will appeal to this group. That said, you should also buy our book when it comes out from her, because it's going to be amazing, and it's longer and will actually like also blow people's minds.
Here it is.
Have you ever bought a book from Amazon Crossing?
No.
Would you?
I don't think I ever really thought about it. It's not like I had some like moral objection to it. I just kind of assumed, like everyone else, I would imagine, that like what you said, they just do, kind of poppy, thrillery, genre-esque sort of translations that just don't seem to be my kind of thing. So I just had never thought to even,
Yeah.
I do, if I see, like I told you when I was trying to guess the Best Translated Book Award, I saw the long list of, what was it, 20 or 30 eligible books from Amazon Crossing last year, and I just immediately discarded all of them because I didn't think anyone would think any of them were any good.
Right.
This is obviously, has the potential to change that perception.
I think this would make that list. Will make the list next year. There's like a couple other authors. They do. Gerasimov is a Russian writer who we looked at before in the past and almost published. And there's also that Oksana what's her last name? The Ukrainian writer who's like one of the best Ukrainian writers, Zabushko. I might be screwing that up, that did fieldwork in Ukrainian sex, but more importantly, the Museum of Abandoned Secrets, that's sort of like time leading up to the Orange Revolution. So I think there's like a handful of authors that are like truly literary authors that they have within their list. And then there are, as we say, like a ton of the romance and young adult and thriller and horror sci-fi things that don't really appeal to me.
Can we talk a little bit of practical business here on Amazon Crossings?
Sure.
So I'm looking at the page on Amazon for the paperback, which I didn't realize they actually printed books. I really thought they only did ebooks. That's how
right. Yeah.
I attention to this stuff. So 26 new paperbacks, right? And you go in here and they're different prices because they're not shipping from Amazon.
Wait, where are you looking at?
So if you look,
the 26 new.
Yeah.
Right. These are all the individual, yeah.
So these people are ordering physical copies of the books from Amazon and then reselling them?
My guess is that they're people who got review copies.
You think so?
Yeah. These are all used bookstores that would probably be someone has turned in their review copy. That's going to be my guess. But who knows? Yeah, how they would have come across this. Because otherwise it does not make any sense. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Amazon should have a grip on this stuff. Or that they would want to.
They let everyone do it. Yeah, they can do it for, like, what's one of your new books that's coming out here? Let's see if this is on here. Check of Excel. I haven't looked at something like this in a long time. Oh, there's only one new for... That's not out yet, though. What else? Is there any book that we're talking about that is also available? Oh.
Apocalypse Baby should be available.
Speaking of, we can segue right into that one in a second here. Apocalypse Baby came out and they have 23 new ones. And it's the same thing. It's the same places in most cases, too.
Is that really?
Yep. It's a lot of the same names I'm seeing again.
I feel like...
I never order books from there. I always just order, like, the regular... Like, if I buy a book online, I buy it, like, just the normal, I want the book from the place I'm buying it from sent to me as a new book, not from, like, a third-party source.
Oh, really? I go the other way.
My students always use the... Like, if you ask them, I think I've said this on here before, if you ask them how much this book costs, like Apocalypse Baby, and you're looking at the Amazon thing, they'll either say $14.19 or $7.31.
Yeah.
They will never say $17.95. Like, they just have no concept that that's the list price of the book. Yeah, I always just order the regular. I just because also like then the money goes back to the publisher and to the author. Like, so, I don't know. I guess it's stupid because I mean I say the same thing about like I listen to Spotify and people are like, none of the money goes back to the artist, and like whatever, that's fine. It's more complicated than that, but whatever.
Tidal instead.
What's that?
You can get Tidal. Jay-Z's nonsensical new streaming music thing.
That's true. Which I saw an article that compared that to Bookish. Which was, and it was like in a negative way. It was like, this will fail the same way Bookish did.
Well, yeah. There's no other way you could compare something to Bookish. It's always a bad comparison.
Oh, man. So anyway, speaking of Apocalypse Baby, this is a book that we were going to read as our next book club book, right?
Yeah, I feel like I would still be up for that. You need to read it.
I need to get through reading the thing for the event that I'm doing for you guys.
So you should do that as well. Which, by the way, have we announced here?
I don't think so.
So, yes, May 21st.
Thursday, May 21st, yeah. It better be because I have all my tickets and everything. So.
All right. You, Chad Post, will be moderating a discussion at Albertine Books. Just make sure I get all the names right here. Did I put it up on the website yet? No. But Esther Allen will be there discussing Michael Henry Heim.
Yep.
And there's a biography of, I'm blanking on his initials, Moncrief?
Yes, it's CK.
C.K. Moncrief, who was the first translator of Proust into English, written by Jean Finley. So they will be discussing together, moderated by you, just the lives of two great translators and the art of literary translation in general, I suppose.
And the Moncrief one is strange, too, because he's also was a spy, right?
Yeah, which, more and more of these stories come out every year. Like, so-and-so. You know what it is? It's always like these really smart people.
Yeah.
Well, of course. Yes. This person spoke 7 languages and, had a new editors and journalists all over the world. That's a spy. Definitely. Yep. Like they are tagging that person to be a spy. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to tell, I don't know that this will fit into that event, but with referring to Esther Allen and I were together at the Salzburg seminar, which, have you ever heard of the Salzburg seminars? I forget that's the official name.
No.
Okay, so the Salzburg seminars were set up in this palace. Salzburg Global Seminar is the name of it. They take place in the palace that was based on where the Sound of Music came from, and part of it was filmed there, and they have a Sound of Music room and all this stuff in Austria, and it was run by 3 Harvard students, or 2 Harvard students and someone from Princeton or whatever, helped put together the seminars back during the Cold War times at this big palace where people would get together to talk about economics or global policies, whatever. And we went there for a literary translation one, which is crazy and which makes this interesting. But it was clearly that the Salzburg Global Seminars, all the walls were bugged. Everything was set to spy on the people who were there because they're bringing in the best minds from both sides of the divide to discuss things and essentially just be spied upon. And the CIA bankrolled this for years.
Okay.
So we have a spy connection there, sort of. Except I don't think anyone is spying on any literary translators.
No.
At all. And that's all gone in the past, obviously. But
yes.
But nevertheless, it's kind of cool to see.
We do a lot of spying. Don't be fooled.
Yeah. But anyways, reading Apocalypse Baby, I can do that the week of the 18th of May, I'm sure.
Okay. So Apocalypse Baby is by Virginie Despentes. This book is published by the Feminist Press, as was her last book to be translated into English, King Kong Theory, which is, if anyone knows her name, it's because of King Kong Theory, or from the book she wrote, Baisse-moi, which was then she made into a movie.
Right.
Those two, Baisse-moi, King Kong Theory, and even Bye Bye Blondie and her other books, until Apocalypse Baby, have always been sort of slim, sort of autobiographical, sort of theory-laden explorations of sex and feminism and, rape culture and, a lot of horrible things. Now, with Apocalypse Baby, she's actually written a big, expansive, just unbelievably, fictional novel. And it's, I kind of would like to believe that she thinks of herself as the hyena, who is one of the two main characters, but I don't know. I think that's unfair at the same time. So basically, this book is a sort of nebbishy, not very successful, but competent private investigator in Paris loses track of her quarry, which was a 14 or 15-year-old girl whose parents were sort of curious about what she was doing all day, and they were paying her to follow her around. And then one day the girl just vanishes, loses her tail, and then the family gets upset and they want her to come back. And the father, I should say, is a famous writer, and he doesn't want any noise about this and that sort of thing. And the stepmother and the young girl don't get along, but of course she wants her back too, just to keep up appearances. Anyway, so this not very good private investigator calls on a legendary private investigator known as the Hyena, who is, wears leather jackets, aviator sunglasses, probably has tattoos, although I can't remember if that's described. Kind of like, a butch-ish bull dyke lesbian who, does whatever she wants, says whatever she wants, and gets the job done. And she's very good at her job. She has an unbelievable reputation. And so the two of them team up to try to find this girl. And they end up talking to a really broad swath of Parisian society, and then even have to go off to Barcelona to try to find her down there too. And it's just amazing, the people they come across. And I don't even want to begin to get into who they talk to, because it starts to get at where the book might be going, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, because it is, it's 400 pages, but you'll read it in 4 or 5 days and just be breathless the entire time. It's really, 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 really well done, and comes to just a wonderful conclusion, all tied together just perfectly.
Perfect. So we're going to discuss that in the middle of May. So anyone who has read it or decides to read it along should send questions to us too. Did you guys do your event with her?
She had to cancel.
Oh.
She didn't come over. She's, my understanding, and I apologize to anyone if this is not meant to be public information, but basically she was still working on Volume 2 of Vernon's Subotext, which is due out in June, and she hadn't quite finished it when she was supposed to come over for her events. One was going to be last week at Columbia, and then there's going to be one tomorrow night at our bookstore that's canceled. So it was because of work. She just, deadlines were upon her.
Do you know about Vernon's Subotext? I
haven't read it yet. I have a copy here. I just haven't got around to it.
And it is a trilogy?
No, I think it's just 2.
Oh, okay.
I do think it's something like Apocalypse Baby, though.
Okay.
From everything I've heard and read, and I think I read like the first 3 pages one day just sitting at the bookstore. They do seem quite similar.
Oh, cool.
She's definitely fascinated with like urban decay and like, the state of the world that we've all gotten ourselves into, and the way we build our own personal private hells, and in the hopes that we're actually building a paradise. And she definitely has her pulse on something. That's for sure.
I'm excited to be able to read that. Along with the next book that we want to talk about, once I finally finish, that was a really random segue. After I finish all this stuff for class and for our sales conference, then I'll be happy. But you said before we talk about the next one that there was a email that came in that might tie into
there is, but you should get to the point about this, and then we'll talk.
Okay. The book I want to read that I'm excited about reading is called The Dirty Dust by, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce this because it's an Irish name.
Really glad you and not me.
I have no idea. I can't pronounce anything Irish at all, so I'm just not going to do it. but The Dirty Dust is available from Yale. And this is a book that, according to Colm Toibin, was the greatest novel to be written in the Irish language and among the best books to come out of Ireland in the 20th century. And it was written in, I forget which year this came out. It's written in Irish, in modern Irish, came out in 1949, has never been translated in English, but it's supposed to be an incredibly funny, strange book in which all of the characters are dead, and it's filled with all these rumors and backbiting and insults and that sort of Irish humor that I do really appreciate. So I'm excited to be able to read this. And more so, what's very weird about it is that with the press release that Yale sent along with the galley, there's another translation of this that they're bringing out next year. So in 2016, they have another translation of The Dirty Dust, which I think has a slightly different title. But now I can't find that press release. But that they'll be bringing out, which I think is strange on how that happened or why or what. But I'm curious to read this and then maybe look at depending on how much I like it, look at the second one and see how those translations compare. I mean, it'd make a good panel, too, to talk to both translators about what they did with this book. But overall, I'm just kind of excited about it because I like these sort of funny, weird Irish books. And I don't know that I've read a book translated from Irish in decades.
No, it says here that it's all dialogue. Did you mention that?
No, but yeah, it's all dialogue.
Which makes sense, I think.
Yeah, kind of has.
So I said that this vaguely ties into an email I got, or we got, that I checked because you don't.
0%
email address. And this is somebody named Scott Roberts. I don't actually know who this is. He's very nice. He has a long question, so bear with me here. It says, Dear Tom and Chad, I noticed that Matthias Enard's novel Zone came out from a UK publisher recently, and this made me wonder about what happens editorially to a book under such circumstances. Because the open letter edition came out in 2010, is the UK publisher basically buying a finished product and at most changing American words for spelling used in the UK, color to color with the U, etc.? Mm-hmm. Or are they taking on Charlotte Mandel's translation and going over it editorial like any other book they would be seeing for the first time? Fitzcarraldo Editions was founded in 2014 and so obviously came to acquire the rights well after Open Letter did.
Yeah.
In the intervening years, would Miss Mandel have continued to work on the translation that might lead to subtle or substantive changes? I can think of a few authors whose books I've read in two or more translations, but I can't think of any that I have bought of the same translation published in the UK and the US with an eye to comparing. That said, I'm not sure I could find a more interesting contemporary book for such a line-by-line reading. I think you and I both know the answer to this question. You obviously have firsthand on this particular book, so go ahead.
Yeah, there's two things. With the Zone, I don't think that they changed anything aside from the spellings. I'm not entirely... I assume they changed those as well. I don't think there's anything else. And I don't think that Charlotte's been working on it in any way since then. If there are errors, she probably told them. If there's a typo or something that's wrong, they fix that. But generally for these sorts of books, they're just acquiring the rights and sort of use it as is. That said, we've had Dubravka Ugrashek changes her books with every publisher, but Andres Newman, whose short story collection we're bringing out in September, his UK edition is different than our US edition because he cut certain stories and tweaked certain lines that he wanted different in the translation. That he did kind of continue working on it, but it came from him, not from the translators.
In that case, if you were to reprint, would you incorporate his changes?
No, we are, because we haven't done the book. Our book's coming out in September. We've used all of his, okay. So we cut 5 of the stories because he had I think it was set up where there's 5 parts and there's 6 stories in each part, and now it's 5 parts with 5 stories in each part. And there's a few things at the end. There's these lists, and in the list there's certain phrases that he changed because he wanted a joke to come through differently.
Right.
And we did incorporate all of those. Yeah.
But to answer the question, in general, the situation is that the UK publisher, the second same language publisher just buys the translation rights.
Yeah.
Or they buy so basically Fitzcarraldo probably bought the UK and, what's it called? Commonwealth. Right, which is, Jesus Christ, we're still calling it a Commonwealth.
I know.
But they bought the Commonwealth rights to this book from whoever the rights holder is, right?
Yeah.
Axud, okay. So, but then they make a deal with you to buy the translation.
Exactly.
And so that's generally how it works all over the world, both ways across the Atlantic. for these kinds of things that are followed in close proximity for things that are still in copyright.
Yeah.
The other version of this is to use something just completely out of copyright. Like Tolstoy is in, I don't know, 6 or 7 different editions just in the US and probably another 3 or 4 in the UK.
Yeah.
And you can go ahead and buy the translation. Oxford University Press could buy Modern Libraries, which is part of Random House's translation, and then just reprint it in their edition in the UK,
right?
If they really liked that translation. Or they hire another translator and that person submits a new translation. And because it's not, the underlying work is not in copyright, you can do this ad nauseum.
Right. And that's what I wonder. Like, I don't know. I would assume that this book, this Irish book, The Dirty Dust, its copyright is 1949. That would not be in public domain.
No. I mean, he didn't die until 70. So
yeah.
It's definitely not public domain.
So that's why I'm curious as to how that happened or what happened.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wonder if 2 people just independently translated it. And then Yale found out about it and was like, this would be kind of cool. Since we have the rights to the book, we can publish multiple translations of the book we have the rights to.
As a consumer thing, this is going to be a disaster.
It's going to be really weird. I think it would be appealing to academics, so the 5 of them that actually, I don't know, read new books that come out or they're newly published, or would be interested in this. But I can't imagine that like on a bookshelf. Like it's just gonna be.
I'm just trying to picture like knowing the archaic sort of nature of bookstore software.
Oh my god!
Like,
they do have I know it has a slightly different title. I just don't remember what it is.
Oh, is that okay? Maybe that's why it has a slightly different title. Because honestly, you see this in a system, and they're both from the same publisher.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like I have no fucking idea which one to reorder. Like I don't remember which is which.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just going to be like customers are not going to truly understand what they're looking at. And
okay, here's what it says from the press release. Quote, Yale University Press will publish another translation of this novel, Graveyard Clay, translated by, oh, Jesus. And I wish Irish was easier for me to pronounce. Liam McConamara, whatever, and Tim Robinson, also as part of the Margolis World Republic of Letters series in a special annotated edition in 2016. So maybe that one's like a more academic one, because this one has no footnotes or annotations or anything. It's just a straightforward novel.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, it's like I don't know if they still do them. Didn't like Norton used to have like the critical edition thing?
They did,
They were just using other publishers, like the same translation and just, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I still think it's going to be a little bit of a disaster, but
I think it's going to be really hard to deal with, yes.
That poor second translation is never going to get reviewed.
No, I don't. Yeah, that's what I don't understand exactly.
Since we're just going to do this anyway, that title is much worse.
Graveyard Clay.
Yeah.
I agree. Dirty Dust is kind of interesting.
I like it. Yeah.
And the picture isn't bad of like this guy burying you.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't know why the yellow line is there, but.
I think that's part of their design. They always have a line with the picture on top and the thing on the bottom. But what's weird is like looking at the actual book is that this is like a low res image too.
Well, maybe that's just you have a galley though, right?
No, I have the finished copy right now. It looks very pixelated and oddly colored, but it's decent. Looks a little scary.
Yeah,
Getting shit dumped on you.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this book. Definitely.
Yeah, it would be cool. So we have rants and raves still too.
Yes, we do. You're on rants. Were you aware of that?
I thought I was on rave.
Oh. Can we both rave? We can both rave.
We can both rave. Because last time I ranted about something about McDonald's, didn't I?
I feel like that was a couple ago.
Shit. Yeah, I was gonna rave about. You can go first because mine's not that interesting.
Mine isn't either. Mine is sports based.
Nice.
We did not do a podcast last week. Were you away?
No, wait, was I away? I don't think so. I think I was actually here last week.
Yeah, you were, because we were texting.
But I was at AWP up until...
Oh, right, yes. but I was not available to podcast last week because I was at the opening day game for the Mets at Citi Field this year. It was 70 degrees. It was a 1 o'clock in the afternoon game against the Phillies, which, whatever. We won. We have not lost since, I would like to point out.
Yeah.
By the time this podcast goes up, that'll probably change. However, I'm not here to brag about how great the Mets are 1/10 of 1% into the season. What I am here to talk about is how awesome opening days are, because especially the day games. Like, if you have an opening day and it's a night game, you're doing it wrong. It should always be a day game, because the best part is seeing all the people that take days off of work. And okay, I didn't have to, but I'm the anomaly.
Right.
Well, like the two friends that I went with both took the day off of work. The vast majority of the people there took a day off of work, took their kids out of school to go see the Mets and to go see baseball, more importantly, to sit in the sun and watch baseball. And that's fantastic. It's really heartwarming to know that people will skip work to go to baseball.
I agree. I remember when you were in elementary school or junior high, did they play like on opening day, play games in all your classrooms? Because we did this.
No, but only because, although you're going to say that this is the similar situation. I grew up in dead middle of Connecticut, which is not necessarily Yankees territory or Red Sox territory or Mets territory. So
yeah, we had the Tigers. So Michigan, the Tigers game would be on. Because they always on opening day, most of those games are at like 1 p.m. or whatever during the school day. But I remember it would just be on in the classrooms, and it was like an event. That an opening day you could wear your hat at school, things like that. I don't know if that happens anymore. I feel like it's probably not. It's just sad. I kind of love that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember events, day baseball being on TV. The only thing I can think of, and this is so different, was the '88 Olympics, Seoul.
Oh,
there was a pair, obviously, of synchronized swimmers who were twins who were from my hometown.
Oh, wow.
And so when they were swimming at whatever ungodly hour in the morning it was, because of the time difference from Seoul, that would every classroom would have it on TV, and you would just stop.
Huh.
Classes, whatever lesson was going on. I was in I would have been in 5th or 6th grade. 5th grade, the class would just stop for 10 minutes so that you could watch their synchronized swimming routine.
That's pretty entertaining. I don't remember
weird. It's really weird.
There was, I guess there were some Olympic things that we would watch in school, and of course all of the space shuttle liftoffs until Challenger. Everything would stop for those.
Yes, I was actually home from school that day.
My mom was subbing in our school that day, which is extra weird.
Wait a minute. I'm trying to think. I definitely remember watching other sporting events. I think when UConn started to get good and the tournament.
Oh.
We would the first games are at noon.
Yeah.
If you was playing, we would definitely be watching. I think when the Dream Team was going on, we watched.
But that was in the summer.
A specific baseball, no.
Huh. That's interesting. Also, I should say that on Tuesday, May 26th, we should see if Jeremy Garber wants to go see the Mets game against the Phillies, because he's a huge Phillies fan.
So I was just talking to my friend, who's not a Mets fan at all, but about we wanted to go soon on a Monday or Tuesday, because those are my days off. And I think he'll be around too. He'll probably join us.
It's a Tuesday night, but I think it would work for him. I know it would work for me because I get in. I just checked. I get in that Tuesday morning.
I think Sparks gets in if he's listening.
He's probably too.
Yeah, I think he'll be in that day too. So maybe we can all go.
And Nick Budzinski.
I don't know Nick.
He used to work at Green Apple. He works at the Strand now. He's a big Giants fan though, so fuck him. Also, my team is terrible. I hate fantasy everything. Everyone gets injured constantly. If I draft you, your career is going to be ruined. I guarantee it. My rave was going to be for this weekend. I was talking to the kids and my kids, and they are 11 and 7, in case anyone doesn't know. And they were talking about different movies that they'd watched at their mom's house, but they had never, Goonies or Adventures in Babysitting, these movies from the 80s, but they had never seen Back to the Future. So we watched the whole Back to the Future trilogy over this weekend, which is awesome in its own regard. But the point that I want to make, the thing I want to rave about, was that someone else I had seen on Facebook, an old friend of mine, had posted something about the Star Wars trailer and how it brought him back to his youth, and he wanted to relive like the days when he had Star Wars like bed sheets and like the excitement for that movie. And I realized that it's very cool to be able to watch these movies with your children, and you can sort of relive that of being like, wow, this is exciting again in this way that's like fresh, like you are 11 years old and not jaded and old and not caring about these things anymore. And I just wanted to, my rave is for that experience of like being able to relive those things with your kids. So you got to watch Back to the Future, which is filled with swearing, impressively enough. Like for PG movies back in the 80s, they swear a lot.
Really?
Yeah, a lot. Like, holy shits, god damn it, son of a bitch, like constantly. It was brilliant. My son was just like, watch your mouth. Like, whatever, man. Let the movie swear. But yeah, big different times. I think we've become much more puritanical in our ratings and what children are allowed to see. Like, those are just normal movies. There's nothing like just PG rated movies with cursing and occasional like sex references. Nowadays, I don't think that would fly. That'd be like PG-13.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It's funny. I was just trying to remember. Oh, I just rewatched Con Air because of How Did This Get Made?
Oh my god.
Oh man, it's quite a movie. Let me tell you.
I vaguely remember that movie. I remember that the cover to which I'm looking at. I remember very well. But
yeah,
but that is terrible. Is there a How Did This Get Made about Back to the Future?
No, they only do bad movies.
I know. I thought maybe they would just put it in that category and just rip on it.
Yeah. Breaking news here on the podcast: the Pulitzers were just announced.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And who won?
In fiction, Anthony Doerr, however you say his name.
Yeah.
All the Light We Cannot See.
Yep.
And poetry was Digest by Gregory Pardlow from Four Way Books.
Oh.
General nonfiction, The Sixth Extinction, and Unnatural History by Elizabeth Colbert.
I've heard of that.
Autobiography or biography, The Pope and Mussolini. Didn't know that book.
Okay.
History, Encounters at the Heart of the World by Elizabeth Fenn. Drama, Between Riversides and Crazy by Stephen Adley Garrigis.
Huh. So Claudia Rankine didn't win.
Claudia Rankine did not win.
That's sort of surprising.
Breaking news photography. You'll find this interesting. St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Wow. Is it for the Ferguson stuff?
Has to be, right?
Yeah, then absolutely has to be.
I think there's a citation. Let me see. Yes, exactly. Yep, that's what it's for.
That makes sense.
I'm just looking through criticism. Mary McNamara of the LA Times. I don't know who that is.
Not either.
New York Times, racking them up. International reporting of the New York Times staff.
Just generally?
Yeah.
That seems weird.
That is weird.
I thought it was like for a person usually.
Yeah. That's about it.
Huh.
There are some other things, but I just don't know what these are.
Yeah. The big ones are taken care of.
Yep. In the fiction, there's also a finalist thing here. Also nominated as finalists in this category, Let Me Be Frank With You by Richard Ford. The Moore's Account by Leila Lamy.
Oh, wow.
And Lovely Dark Deep by Joyce Carol Oates.
Wow. Those are the finalists?
Yeah.
That seems super strange. Richard Ford shouldn't be a finalist for anything, first of all. But and Joyce Carol Oates being on one of those lists seems odd. Just because she doesn't get that sort of respect.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well,
what's that?
There you go.
Well, at least Richard Ford didn't win.
Good point.
That's a plus. Well, it's a slightly better place because of that. Sorry, I do not like that man. He spoke at our graduation. He's a Michigan State alum. And I just do not, I know personal things about him. Met him. I just do not like him. So, and I do not like his fiction at all.
I have never read a single one of his books.
We read Independence Day in college because it was sort of like it was a road trip baseball book, and it was because he was like MSU person. And it's just boring. I mean, it's the same. It's just like, faux Raymond Carver-esque things writ large and with a man searching for meaning in life at the middle of it in very conventional, trite ways. The end. That's every book he's ever written.
Okay. Well, that's kind of my impression anyway, so.
Yep. It is what you think it is. There's nothing will surprise you there at all. Oh, man. But anyway, so I don't have anything else for today.
Nor do I.
I guess next week we'll both rant.
Next week, I will have some ranting.
I meant to ask you, and I totally forgot. And I'm sure I have things I'd rant about, but I can't think of what they would be right away.
I can't think of anything. I mean, I'm on my day off.
Yeah.
So I'm in a good mood. So.
Yeah, it's nice outside for once.
Not here. Pouring rain.
Oh, really? It poured overnight here. That's past, and now it's like 60 again and sunny. But anyways, okay, well, I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Yes. Have a good week.